Welcome to Morning Rush. I'm Chris Stewart. Here's what we're following right now. President Biden set to host President-elect Trump at the White House at this hour. Biden has stressed the symbolic importance of this meeting to demonstrate the peaceful transfer of power from one administration to the next. President-elect Donald Trump choosing a Fox News host to run the Pentagon, self-proclaimed Zionist who opposes a ceasefire in Gaza to be ambassador to Israel, and two billionaires to run a new Department of Government Efficiency, one of whom owns companies that have federal contracts worth billions of dollars. Right now on Capitol Hill, an election is underway to pick a new majority leader to replace outgoing Mitch McConnell in the Senate. Republican senators will submit their votes by secret ballot, meaning senators can vote anonymously, vying for the seat. Senator Rick Scott of Florida, current GOP whip John Thune of South Dakota, and Senator John Cornyn of Texas. There's a new king of charm in Hollywood, a familiar face, John Krasinski, best known as Jim Halpert from The Office. He just got promoted from paper salesman to heartthrob. The big news dropping on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert last night. Krasinski taking over the title from last year's honoree, Grey's Anatomy star Patrick Dempsey. All right, let's get to the news of the day taking place in Washington, where President-elect Trump is due at the White House at any moment, where he will meet with President Biden. The meeting between the incoming and outgoing president, typically a tradition each time a new administration prepares to take power. You're taking a look here at images of President-elect Trump, his motorcade arriving at the White House. The notable exception to the tradition 4 years ago, when then President Trump refused to invite Biden to a White House meeting and left Washington before the president's inauguration. We have team coverage this morning from Washington on this meeting. Political director Andrew Rafferty is in our D.C. newsroom. We begin, though, at the White House with national political correspondent Stephanie Liebergen. Stephanie, this will be quite a sight. What can we expect from this meeting?
Hey, Chris, good morning. Well, there is a large crowd of media gathered here at the White House hoping to see President-elect Trump either before or after his big meeting with President Biden in the Oval Office that is due to get started really in any minute now. And this meeting comes as part, as you mentioned, of the normal transfer of power process. The White House, the Biden administration, has stressed that they want to see a normal process, a normal handoff, and that they are going to do whatever they can do to help President-elect Trump get set up for success in his second administration. When the two presidents meet today, they're likely to cover a range of topics, domestic and foreign policy issues, and the two presidents will have a chance to hear each other out on areas where they disagree. Before coming to the White House here today, President-elect Trump met with the House Republican caucus just a few minutes away at the Hyatt here in Washington, D.C., where in that meeting, the president-elect supported House Speaker Mike Johnson to continue to lead that caucus in the next Congress. There are leadership elections on the Republican side in both the House today, so that is really the big headline on the other end of Capitol Hill. But a lot of people waiting for Trump to show up here, wondering how long he's going to meet with President Biden, whether he's going to come talk to the media and come address the media, which would be the first time since election night is the last time we saw President-elect Trump in front of the cameras and behind a microphone.
And those are some images we have up on the screen of the president-elect meeting with the House GOP earlier today. National political correspondent Stephanie Liebergen for us from the White House. Stephanie, thank you. I now turn to our D.C. newsroom with political director Andrew Rafferty. Andrew, I remember in 2016, then President Obama meeting with President-elect Trump. Here we go again, where we'll see this image. What does this image, this meeting today between two longtime rivals, potentially mean for this country politically?
Yeah, well, good morning, Chris. I think this is going to be tough to watch for a lot of Democrats here in Washington and a lot of Democratic voters around the country who voted for Kamala Harris or even supported her because of this idea of democracy. You remember both Joe Biden's campaign as well as Kamala Harris's ran on this idea that Donald Trump was a threat to democracy. And here, fast forward to today, we're going to see President Joe Biden and President-elect Donald Trump sitting together at the Oval Office. But in terms of what this means for the country, if you look at where Joe Biden has been in his career, his sort of ability to reach across the aisle and sort of reach out to voters who may feel alienated by the current Democratic electorate or current Democratic Party. Maybe they're people who supported Donald Trump. There was no doubt that Joe Biden would want to have a moment like he's about to have in a few minutes here with Donald Trump, because it is the sort of peaceful transfer of power, but also this idea that if you're going to run and be the party of democracy, if the Democrats have tried to brand themselves, that the peaceful transfer of power, the being able to showcase what it should look like in a functioning democratic republic, is really, really important. And so no doubt this image today will be powerful. It'll be hard to watch for a lot of the Harris supporters and even Biden supporters. And of course, the last time Biden and Trump met was at the now infamous debate back in June that ultimately undid Joe Biden's re-election campaign. So the way that these two men interact today, whatever we're able to see on camera, is really going to be fascinating. But I don't expect it to really set the tone more than just what I kind of laid out in sort of a showcase to the rest of the nation, that regardless of how you voted last week, that things are going to be okay in terms of how these things transfer from one administration to the next. I think both men will be very keen on portraying that there is a calmness to this, a calmness that we did not see 4 years ago when ultimately it ended in the January 6th riots here in D.C.
Yeah, much different situation. Again, President-elect Trump has arrived at the White House in the last couple of minutes. We'll bring you live pictures of this meeting when it happens. Political director Andrew Rafferty for us in Washington. Andrew, thank you. A common theme of President-elect Trump's new administration is loyalty. Trump's latest appointees include two billionaire backers of his 2024 candidacy, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. They will head an, as of yet, non-existent agency to slash federal spending. Also, in choosing a new defense secretary, Trump turned to the friendly environments of Fox News. Pete Hegseth, a host on the conservative network since 2014, has been a dedicated supporter of Trump since his first term in the White House. Prior to working for Fox, Hegseth was an Army captain who served overseas in Iraq and Afghanistan. On Fox, Hegseth has defended Trump's embrace of North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, supported his plan to pull U.S. troops from overseas posts, and intervened with the then president on behalf of combat veterans accused of war crimes. He has been an outspoken critic of assigning women to combat roles, arguing that men are more capable in those positions.
I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. It hasn't made us more effective, hasn't made us more lethal, has made fighting more complicated. Most of them actually are, a lot of them are pushed, I shouldn't say most, but many are pushed into a combat track because they're so highly capable. But if they had their first choice, it probably wouldn't be that.
Though he is a combat veteran, Hegseth has no substantial leadership experience, and he would be in charge of an agency with a budget of more than $800 billion and more than 700,000 employees. In a statement, Trump called Hegseth, quote, tough, smart, and a true believer in America first. Trump also announcing his nominee for CIA director. He has tapped John Ratcliffe, who served as the director of national intelligence during his first term in office. While serving in Congress, Ratcliffe fought on Trump's behalf, helping to pursue investigations into Hunter Biden and often criticizing the probe into ties between Russia and Trump's 2016 campaign. The Post requires Senate confirmation. Trump's choice for ambassador to Israel says he sees no need for a ceasefire in Gaza and opposes U.S. policy calling for establishment of a Palestinian state. Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, a former TV host as well, and a Baptist preacher, is a self-described Zionist who is a strong supporter of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He says the war in Gaza should continue until Hamas is wiped out or the militant group unconditionally surrenders. International correspondent Giles Gibson is in Tel Aviv with more on the reaction to Huckabee's appointment.
Reacting to this nomination by President-elect Trump, the Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar has said that Mike Huckabee is a long-standing friend of Israel, and the far-right Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich has said that together they can strengthen Israel's security. At the same time, Mike Huckabee has a long history of making controversial comments when it comes to the Palestinian people as well as to settlements in the West Bank, implying that the West Bank should be part of simply Israel rather than part of a future Palestinian state under a two-state solution. In the short term, this nomination of Mike Huckabee to be the next U.S. ambassador to Israel is not really going to impact the situation on the ground because, of course, he's waiting for the Trump administration to take over as well as to be confirmed by the U.S. Senate. And also at the same time, we have the outgoing Biden administration pushing to make ceasefire deals between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, as well as a ceasefire deal in terms of the IDF's offensive in Lebanon, and also reporting that President-elect Trump has told Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, that he wants to see an end to the conflict in Gaza before his inauguration as U.S. President once again in mid to late January. Giles Gibson, Scripps News, Tel Aviv.
All right, Giles, thank you. I want to take you live to Washington once again, a live look at the White House where we are told that President Biden and President-elect Donald Trump are speaking and meeting right now. This is per a pool report. We will keep a close eye on the White House for more details on what is being said and some of the images coming out of these two longtime rivals meeting in Washington. We turn to Capitol Hill, where Republicans are choosing a new Senate Majority Leader today, and no matter who wins, he is expected to be loyal to President-elect Trump. Seeking the role are Senators John Cornyn of Texas, Rick Scott of Florida, and John Thune of South Dakota. All three say they are committing to enacting Trump's agenda for his second term. Republicans will hold at least 52 of the Senate's 100 seats. You're taking a live look on Capitol Hill, where reporters are waiting for that meeting to end and for lawmakers to speak. We're keeping a close eye on this vote, and we'll bring you updates as it comes into our newsroom. We turn to some of the other headlines that we're watching this morning. As a former member of the Massachusetts Air National Guard will serve 15 years in prison for stealing classified material from the Pentagon and sharing it on social media. You saw an image there of Jack Teixeira. He pleaded guilty to stealing documents related to the war in Ukraine and posting them on social media on the platform Discord in 2023. He faced a maximum sentence of 17 years in prison. Prosecutors said the leak put U.S. personnel abroad at risk and damaged relationships with foreign allies. At least 2 people are dead and multiple people are injured after an explosion at a chemical facility in Louisville, Kentucky. The explosion happened yesterday afternoon. Employees working inside the plant said everything was normal when the explosion occurred. Evacuation and shelter-in-place orders were issued to people living within a 2-block radius of the facility. Those have since been lifted, but the cause of the blast is still under investigation. The man accused of killing nursing student Laken Riley in Georgia has waived his right to a trial by jury. The case sparked national outrage over the U.S. immigration system since Jose Ibarra, who you see there, is an undocumented migrant. He opted instead for a bench trial. That means only the judge will decide if he is guilty or innocent. He's facing 10 counts, including murder and aggravated assault with intent to rape. He has pleaded not guilty to all charges. The bench trial will begin on Friday. All U.S. flights to Haiti have been grounded for a month. The Federal Aviation Administration made that decision after planes from 3 major U.S. airlines reported they were struck by bullets while flying over Haiti's capital of Port-au-Prince. The capital has been dealing with escalating gang violence in recent months. Haitian authorities have already suspended flights in and out of the country's capital for a week. Correspondent Jason Bellini takes a closer look.
Flights from 2 U.S. airlines have come under fire as Haiti sinks further into the abyss of violent gang warfare. Bullets pierced the cabin of a Spirit Airlines flight during its final approach on Monday to Haiti's main airport, injuring a flight attendant. The pilot immediately aborted the landing and made an emergency diversion to an airport in the Dominican Republic. 2 other planes headed to the airport were diverted. Port-au-Prince's airport is now closed. We landed there in June, shortly after airlines deemed it safe enough to resume service, despite gangs controlling, according to the UN, 85% of the capital. This summer brought hope to Haiti that hundreds of newly arriving Kenyan police officers would help restore order, but it appears the gangs have expanded their control. So where's the U.S. in all of this? Well, some $300 million in military assistance is being contributed by the U.S., and this fiscal year, more than $200 million in humanitarian aid is coming from the U.S. Most of it arrives via U.S. military cargo planes flying into Port-au-Prince's main airport. We reached out today to CENTCOM to find out if military flights are also on hold but have not heard back yet. The gang war has killed nearly 4,000 people this year, according to the UN, and more than 700,000 people have been forced from their homes. Jason Bellini, Scripps News, Washington.
Jason, thank you. Special counsel Jack Smith reportedly will resign before President-elect Trump has a chance to fire him, but he's not going quietly. What he has to say next. Plus, tens of millions of Americans are under wildfire threats today as strong winds, low humidity, and historic drought are combining to create dangerous situations across the Northeast. The latest forecast when Morning Rush continues. Next.